Good evening. This is Life Mastery TV, and I'm your host, Terrence Perry. And today I have two co-hosts alongside me. We have to my left, Sabrina Briscoe, and she's a domestic violence advocate. And to my right, we have Michelle Chambers, and she's the owner of Therapeutic Family Solutions. She's going to tell us a little bit about Therapeutic Family Solutions, and Sabrina's going to also talk to us a little bit about the domestic violence advocacy. This is Domestic Violence Month, so we're going to talk about that subject matter a little bit today. We're going to go into the realm of healing the hole in the soul, which y'all know is my favorite topic to talk about. And that's sort of broad, but as we talk about it and get into it, we'll kind of narrow it down as much as possible. So I'm going to give, first of all, Sabrina an opportunity to introduce herself and just a little bit about what you do as a domestic violence advocate, and then Michelle talk a little bit about Therapeutic Family Solutions. So I want to thank the audience for joining us and tuning in. Hopefully we have a good show for you. Sabrina.
Hi everybody, my name is Sabrina Bristow. I'm a graduate of North Carolina Central University, Eagle Pride. I have been working in domestic violence advocacy for about 30 years. I started out in victim services with the District of Columbia Superior Court. Moved to North Carolina, and I worked as a victim services coordinator for 2 different district attorney's offices for the North Carolina criminal justice system. Made a career switch in probably about 2011. I went back to school full time, got my bachelor's degree in social work, and then went back and got my master's degree. But all the time I've been focused on working with domestic violence survivors, also child abuse and sexual assault. So that's pretty much my background.
Okay, and Michelle.
Hey, good morning. My name is Michelle Chambers. I'm the owner of Therapeutic Family Solutions. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm also a licensed clinical addiction specialist. So what that means is I serve families and children with substance use and mental health disorders. So look forward to talking to you this morning about healing the hole in the soul.
All right. So we're going to get in that subject matter in just a minute. I do want to acknowledge the producer, Lorinda. Hey.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right. So in talking about healing the hole in the soul, and in particular with the name of the show, Life Mastery, and my new book is out also along the same lines of Life Mastery. Begins with healing the hole in the soul. So that's the subject matter I want to touch on today. And in touching on this subject matter, when we're talking about life mastery, we're thinking in terms of mastering all aspects of your life. But my take on it is that you can't master all aspects of your life without first dealing with what pains you, that hole in your soul. And it's not to say that you can't master different aspects of your life, but when you look at the longevity of it, over the long haul, there's fluctuations if you haven't healed certain wounds in the past, certain things that you may have gone through, certain things that may have scarred you. I don't feel like that you can master life wholeheartedly without dealing with those things, because they keep coming back up, and things will trigger different experiences that you may have had. Things in life may trigger them, and they come up. And while you're trying to master your career, maybe job, maybe family, maybe kids, and so forth, some is going to bring about a negative trigger. And everything that you worked hard for could come tumbling down. I use the example of, let's take Whitney Houston for example. She mastered music, Bobby Brown mastered music, and they were excellent at mastering music. But other aspects of their life, we know that they did master, and that affected their music, their lifestyle, even with Whitney, even lead to death because of addiction and so forth. So it's not that you can't master certain aspects of your life, but over the long haul, you're gonna fall short at some point, and you're gonna have to come back to that healing again. Or you may just live a mediocre life and not really strive to, to be the best person that you can be, the best version of yourself. You may not reach that if you haven't dealt with some things in the past. So we're going to kind of talk about that today, and I want y'all ladies to chime in as you may. But in this, I want to talk about those broken bonds in childhood, because I like to think in terms of that's where a lot of it starts from. Those broken bonds in childhood. It could be that parent abandoned you, neglected you, or may have just not been there for you. And if that being the case, then that creates that hole in your soul. Oftentimes it starts in childhood. You agree?
I do agree. It's interesting. I did my master's research on how domestic violence impacts children who are exposed to it. And one of the things we've learned is that even though children are very resilient, the things that they experience in families where there is violence or other trauma going on have lifelong impact if it's not dealt with and recognized and dealt with when they're young. There was a study done in the mid-1990s called the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. It's called ACEs for short. And what they did, it was conducted by the Centers for Disease Control and Kaiser Permanente Insurance Company. And what they did was they looked at 17,000 people who were Kaiser Permanente insured. And they came up with this questionnaire. They had 10 questions on it that asked people to talk about things that they might have experienced in childhood and how that might have impacted them as adults. And what they found out really was groundbreaking evidence that the things that you experience in childhood, whether it's the death of a parent that's exposed to substance abuse, whether there was domestic violence in the home, all of those things have lifelong repercussions that can lead to emotional, mental, even physical problems later on in life. And that research is something that's really being built on now in terms of helping people deal with those traumas that they face as children.
Yeah. So along those same lines, just wanted to say that when children experience trauma, they have brain issues. So in other words, like the corpus callosum in the center of the brain is affected. That affects how each side communicates in the brain. So it's not just about the environment in which a child grows up in, it's also about the biology associated with the trauma they experience. So when we talk about healing the hole in the soul, we need to look at the holistic picture, especially with women.
Absolutely. And that's one thing I've also learned during my experience working with domestic violence victims. A lot of women who grow up in homes where there is violence tend to gravitate towards abusive personalities. And the same thing with young boys who see their mother being battered as a child tend to become batterers because they learn that that's the way men control women, or that's the way men relate to women. So it definitely is a generational thing.
I think those are both well taken. And again, along those same lines, when we're talking about broken bonds in childhood, we're talking about, again, when kids are seeing abuse, how that affects them as adults, it's going to affect their relationship with whomever they're dealing with. So and I'm not saying every single time, but if boys are seeing men beating on their mother or hitting her or cursing her out or just putting her down, then they may have a tendency to do those same behaviors, because oftentimes it's not what you tell a child that a child learns, but a child learns what they see. Sometimes a child that sees that say, I don't want to be like that, and they try very hard not to be like the picture that they saw growing up. But then there are those ones that have a tendency to be just like what they saw. Not saying they actually want to, but they just do, because that's what they live, that's what they know, and that's what they grew up in. So a lot of times they don't necessarily grow outside of that behavior. And we know what that leads to, incarceration and mental health issues.
Yes.
But also a step further, it leads to death, because oftentimes we see that that domestic violence, abuse, it can escalate to intimate partner homicide, because the violence escalates to a point of where it's single at the individual that they're mad at. And I say that in saying, I'm going to take it a step further, but in the black community, it's been, and this is based on stats, the difference in, I guess, in a white male and a black male in terms of domestic violence or the anger that they feel inside. A black male directs his anger at the person that he's actually angry with, whether it be the spouse. Then that's where he's going to direct that anger at the spouse, and that's why their intimate partner homicide rate is high for black males. Not that it's not high in the white male population or Hispanics or whatnot either, but with the white male, when it comes to their anger, is more acted out in terms of they're gonna, if they've been bullied or they are mad at someone, they'll take it out on the whole community, the whole society. They'll go to a mall and shoot up, a whole mall, a whole city if they could. It ain't directed at the one individual. And why that's so? Now, part of it is because that's the way their mindset is. They're going out. They're seeking. I guess they're seeking fame in some sort. If they can't have who or what they want, then they're going to take out not just the individual that they're mad at, but the population. Because, and then they'll go back and they'll turn around and they'll kill themselves. Oftentimes, that's what they've done. Even when you look at the history in America, you can go back 100 years or more, so, and you'll see that same trend. And you'll see the same trend in the black male, the intimate partner homicide. They go after the spouse or person that they're mad at, and once it escalates to the point of where if it leads to murder, that's who they take out. Have y'all seen that trend in American history?
I would say,
over,
sorry, go ahead, sir.
So definitely cultural differences do have an impact on people's behaviors. I don't know the specific stats associated with Black versus white or Hispanic populations, but I do know that healing is a process. So anytime you experience trauma, it's in your advantage to make sure that you have that stable person in your life. So trauma can be kind of balanced, if you want to put it that way, if you have a protective parent in place or somebody in the community that can kind of offset what you've experienced. So it definitely depends on your experiences and those protective people that you have in your life. So that impact could play out in different ways, not necessarily based on race from what I've seen, but just based on what you've been exposed to culturally, and also, again, going back to that genetic makeup.
And one thing, domestic violence is about power and control. It's not necessarily about anger, because you can have somebody who's completely calm and calculating. They're not angry. They're just using violent behavior to control that partner. And so the other violence that you see when you see somebody that's a mass shooter or that kind of behavior, that is antisocial behavior. Yes, they may be violent toward a partner, but this is somebody who is a violent person towards everyone. Most of the domestic violence abusers are not violent towards everyone. They only are violent toward their partner because they recognize the society as a whole is not going to accept that type of behavior. Or somebody who's antisocial or pathologically violent, they're going to express that violent behavior toward everyone. So there are some differences.
And I just wanted to throw that out there, just because of the trend. And like I say, it's not racial, but it is culturally,
Yes.
and also it is power and control. But that power and control is expressed in different ways, and that's y'all explain the way of how those ways are expressed.
Oh, can I put there real quickly, Terrence?
Oh man.
A lot of people think that anger management is a coping mechanism for domestic violence, and it's not. And I think Michelle will bear me out. It's two completely different types of therapy that are focused on different things. Anger management is, again, towards those people who have antisocial type behaviors, who express violence or anger in all kinds of settings, whereas domestic violence is a much more calculated and targeted type of behavior towards that one person that they have that intimate relationship with. So you can't send a batterer to anger management because it's not going to work. You're going to have a calm batterer, and it's not going to affect the domestic violence behavior.
That's good. That's good to know. Because oftentimes we do think that anger management affects everybody's anger, but like you said, if it's if that anger, that's where it's concentrated and directed at, them people can be calm on the outside, but inside they're seething at the person that they're really intent on, like I said, evoking their power and control over. They're gonna do that. They always try and find a way to get to that person. I don't care what you stop and things you try to put in place. They always they won't stop until they get that person. So society do have to put things in place to alleviate that and keep that from happening as much as it do. But it's still it still happens. It's a lot of times even with restraining orders for a person like that, they don't work because they're not paying any attention to a restraining order. But again, those are some of the those things are coming out of childhood. And it's exemplified in the adults, but they're not mental adults. They are adults in age, but mentally, whatever age their womb happened in their childhood, they're holding that soul. Wherever it entered, that's the emotional age that they're stuck at. And until it's actually dealt with, whether it be in therapy, whether it be in, it could be, it might go to psychoanalysts or so forth, but until that's really dealt with, it keeps coming up in the theme of their life, in their adulthood, until, again, like I said, they're either in a mental institution or in prison or something along those lines, because they keep exemplifying that behavior over and over. The healing hadn't taken place. And sometimes, we do find healing, but other times people don't get healing until it's too late. And there was a time in our history where it just wasn't offered. The program wasn't out there, like the program that Michelle has. These programs have maybe been around probably the last 20 or 30 years, but before then, these programs were not in place. So there was no handling of these situations. And then you have to look at the what was the norm in society at the time. It was a male-dominant society, and the laws reflected that. Women didn't have the rights that they have today. Laws have been changed now along the way, but even back 50 years ago, a woman couldn't enter a room that a man was in speaking to another man. A woman couldn't speak. So what does that say about the society in and of itself? That's, to me, that's backwards. But that's the way society had operated. I don't want to take it back to slavery, but you take it back to even black people could not speak when white people were talking, and so even in the child, I know being raised as a child in the '60s, when adults were talking, you battled out over your mouth. You didn't do that, and if you did, you was disciplined like you had totally done something wrong. In this day and time, it sounds far-fetched. It's abuse and so forth. But during that era, and you're only talking about maybe 40 years ago, when that was the norm, you didn't talk. If you was a child, you didn't talk with grown people. You didn't even enter a room with when they were in the room unless you had permission. Nowadays, all of that is it's kind of faded in some respects, but some of the older generations still holds to those practices. And they'll say that child need to be disciplined, or that child need to be, that child is too grown, or what have you. And, and it may be some truth in it, but the way a child is disciplined has changed over the past 40 years. So what may have been abuse, but what may be abuse today, it wasn't abuse 30 or 40 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think part of that is the recognition of how that type of mindset or that type of behavior has damaged children. We've learned a lot more about how children develop emotionally and mentally. And as we've learned, of course, when you know better, you do better.
Right.
So I think that has had a big effect on how parenting practices may have changed. And I agree, when I was growing up, children were supposed to be seen and not heard. You better not open your mouth, when grown folks were talking, girls sit down somewhere and be quiet. But I think now people recognize that children do have, a valid interest in what goes on in the family, and they want to be seen, and they also want to be heard. And sometimes it's valuable for them to be heard. So encouraging your child to ask questions and to give them age-appropriate answers is probably a better practice than just telling them to sit down and be quiet.
And two, let me just say, when you look back at that, I mean that in and of itself, it was a hole to that child's soul to tell that child you can't say nothing, be quiet, shut up. That's saying you're not valuable. Your opinion doesn't matter. So it's putting that child down, and as that child grows up, that child is going to feel unvalidated. You're going to feel like I'm not enough. I'm not good enough, because all their childhood they was told to shut up and be quiet, and I mean, even in the school system, the teachers were teaching. I mean, it's the same thing. That was just the norm of the day at the time. The child again was to be seen and not heard. But how damaging that have been to a child. Now we come to understand and see it now, but then we didn't. So you look at, if you look at adults now, they're still wounded from the way that they were raised during that time. So we're kind of getting out of that, but it's still in the mindset of older adults, not necessarily the younger ones, but the ones that still practice that those type of, I say tradition because that's where it comes from. It's tradition, and some people stick to those old traditions, or they don't want to change. They don't see a need to change. But the need to change is to help their child, help their child to heal. But if you don't even encourage that in the first place, then that'll be a problem that child won't have. But you have to realize that was damaging to any child, telling them to shut up and be quiet. They can't speak when adults are, or speaking or in a room. So those practices, let's hopefully they'll put and stay in the past.
So I just wanted to say, I'm glad you mentioned like generations. I grew up in the 80s, so we did speak and we did interrupt our parents, which is a little different. But also I just wanted to say that it's interesting to me that trauma still remains the same. Like trauma, when people experience that, it doesn't change in terms of how it affects the brain, how it affects your functioning. I know during the 80s it was like the real big crack epidemic. So a lot of people started to use crack cocaine, and that also contributed to the hole in the soul that we're speaking about today. So it's just interesting that they still have those negative coping mechanisms. They're arrested in that time and place in which they grew up. So that coupled together is devastating to some people. So again, as you spoke about earlier, if you don't get the appropriate support, whether that be mental health, domestic violence advocacy, life coaching, if you don't get the appropriate support, then it makes healing really difficult for any generation.
I think too, there's a big stigma in some communities about seeking mental health services or seeking any kind of preventive education. I know in our community, a lot of people will go to church. They'll pray, they'll talk to their pastor, their spiritual advisor, which is wonderful, but that doesn't necessarily give you everything that you need to get past the trauma. And so educating people about, number one, with the recognizing that there's no shame in getting mental health services or seeking advice from a mental health professional. If you had a cancer diagnosis, you wouldn't just say, I'll pray about it. You go to a doctor and you get whatever kind of treatment they recommended. Or, if your car was malfunctioning, you would take the car to a mechanic and you let the mechanic, the expert, fix the car. And it's the same thing with the psyche. If you know you're feeling something or experiencing something that you can't get past, just praying about it may not necessarily be enough. And so you need to maybe seek out help and get past the idea that there's something wrong with you or that you're not, strong enough because you recognize that you need help to get past it.
True. Michelle, you want to chime in?
Well, the stigma associated with mental health definitely is different in the African American community as opposed to Caucasian, that community. But it has gotten better over the years, I've noticed. So more people are seeking help, but again, they don't necessarily want to label themselves with a mental health diagnosis. But again, it's important for them to understand the medical aspect of that as well. So it is like a medical illness. Your brain is affected, the biology is affected, so you do want to get the appropriate treatment. Especially with the consumers that I see, the clients that I see, we make sure we educate them on what that means if they have a mental health diagnosis and how that does affect their brain. And essentially what you're going for is better functioning overall, like being able to function, being able to interact without going back into those same negative patterns that you guys have suggested earlier.
On that same note, let me switch gears, switch gears just a little bit, but again, along the same lines of talking about trauma and childhood labels, I do want to touch on the childhood labels in the families when we're talking about dysfunctional families and childhood labels. You got the black sheep, you got the golden child, the good child, bad, and those labels in childhood also heavily affects the mindset and the emotions of their child.
Yes.
If you calling a child a black sheep, and you're calling this child a golden child, so now you're making differences in the children, but also you're making one sound good and one sound bad. The black sheep was probably the one that didn't do everything the parents told the child to do. And the golden child was the one that did everything to the letter that they were told to do. And not just in parenting, but even in school system. You got the teacher that says, the bad student or the teacher's pet. And it ain't always based on their academic knowledge. It's based on their behavior. Do you do what someone say as soon as they tell you or ask you? So, but I'm saying that to say those labels from childhood can also stigmatize a child, and it affects their development, as they get older, trying to be, again, the best version of themselves. But if you've been told that you're bad, or if you're the black sheep, then that have to have a negative effect on you being able to be the best version of yourself, because you're not going to feel good enough. But if you're being told that you're the golden child and everything that you do is good and blessed, and so you get those affirmations and you get that praise, you're going to feel good about yourself. You're going to do better. You're going to do more. In terms of doing, say, going to college, doing what your parents or authority figures ask you to do.
I agree with you. I think you see in different ends of the spectrum. Because you have the golden child who is always striving to get those positive affirmations. And so, they become people pleasers. They do what they do because they want that affirmation, not necessarily because it's really what they want to do, but because they want to continue to get, the adulation and, the kudos.
Yeah.
And the black sheep, on the other end of the spectrum, does the negative things to get attention because that's what they've learned. That's how they can get attention, is by doing negative things. So you have different ends of the same behavior, but it has the same outcome. Basically, it's an attention-seeking behavior.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, as Sabrina suggested, and you suggested, Terry, when you get older, you play out those same roles in adulthood. You seek out those same relationships. If you're the golden child, you want to please people, which could actually hinder you. Sometimes if you're the golden child, you may not be as ambitious as you could if you were really challenged and not just pleasing other people, but trying to make sure you know exactly what you wanted to do and finding your real purpose. So those goals, those definitely play out in adulthood.
So, and just to, in parenting, it's good to think what you're saying to your child. And let's just say if you have a boy and a girl, I'm just use this for an example, and let's say that the father left the household. So, but if you're telling your son, or you just like your daddy, he was no good, and you're putting him down, or you look like your dad, so if you're saying negative stuff to that child, that male child, then you're gonna see some negative behaviors or outcomes, because those are the messages that you're putting in his head, that he's no good. Or if you're saying all his life, you're saying his dad is no good, then he's gonna, that's you're planting those seeds in his mindset, in the mind. So if the child grows up, what do you think you're gonna get? You can't get a positive child if you hadn't put positive messages in that child's mind. And the same thing with your daughter too. It could be the same thing, but I'm just using male as an example, because oftentimes when we're talking about dysfunctional families, and we're talking about when we talk about the male in specific, just for a minute, oftentimes in the household, and it could be a divorce, it could be a death, or it could just be a separation where the two people didn't want to be together anymore. But if they've had kids, either they have to learn to co-parent and still be the best parents that they can be, and try to be involved in the child's life. I know oftentimes we see it here that fathers are not taking care of their kids, or not paying child support. But that's not such a big deal as the emotional neglect that happens if they're not spending time in a child's life. It's because two adult parents don't can't get along. That's two parents. But the child that suffers is the child that have to see them going at each other, or if the father leaves and has no contact with the co-parent, no contact with the child. Now that hole in that child's soul is big, and it gets bigger because now that child is seeing, Tommy got a daddy, Mark got a daddy, and but he doesn't have a father. He doesn't get a Father's Day. Father's Day is not special to him. It's probably more painful. You got kids that don't have a father, and for most people on Father's Day it's a big deal, but for someone that doesn't have a father, how do you think they feel? So that hole in their soul, it opens wider during those times. During times when kids are growing up and they get involved in sports or music or whatever they choose to be involved in, they want both parents to be involved in that, or they want both parents to be their cheerleader, to say, hey, you did a good job, or you got a game today, I'm going to your game, I'll be there. So the child is looking, in the bleachers for both parents. Most oftentimes, if you got a two-parent family, both is there. sometimes even if the other parent is not in the same household, but they're still spending time with the child and they're still a part of the child's life, it makes a difference. But when they're not, then their whole widens and widens. And again, how do you think that child feels when they're going through that type of, that type of upbringing? Any comment?
Well, Michelle kind of touched on that a little earlier in the statement when she was talking about resilience and how having a role model, even if it's not the parent, just having a stable adult person that kind of sows into that person's life. So if you are a single mom and that dad is not in your child's life, having another stable male figure in the house or dealing with a child on a consistent basis can help cover the gap of not having a father there. And the other thing I want to say too, a lot of times adults hold kids hostage because of the problems that they're having in their relationship. Mom is mad because dad is not with her anymore, and so she doesn't allow dad to participate in the child's life and starts feeding the negativity into the child about their father. So there are those dynamics in play a lot of times too. So people have to recognize your children are the ones who suffer when you are at war with each other. So even if you don't really like the other parent, as long as there's not a safety issue in having the parent interact with the child, you should try to allow the other parent to participate as much as possible.
Well, that's a great question. I wanted to just touch a little bit on family systems and maybe think about that just systematically speaking, how kids function in those dysfunctional systems. So I just want to make sure that we know exactly the child's perspective when we're treating families that are going to eventually grow, they're going to become adults functioning. We want to make sure that we consider the family's role, like the parents' role, the dad's role, the mom's role, the child's role, and get an idea of what they see as kind of normal functioning in their family. And as professionals that are treating them, we need to meet them where they are so we can begin to help them heal the whole of their soul. Okay.
I think so. So just a couple of more topics. I'm just cover a little bit real quickly. I want to just kind of touch on, and we kind of talked about it just a minute ago when we're talking about fatherless sons and dadless daughters. I won't get too deep into that because we kind of just touched on it, but just in terms of, oftentimes when a parent leaves a child during that childhood, think about the effect that it has on that child's life from that point forward. Again, that's where the whole emphasis is so, because if a parent leaves, you're wondering, what did I do? Did I do something? Did I, it's my fault. And it's not your fault. It's not the child's fault. But again, it happens and it affects the daughter and the son. And for a daughter to grow up without a father, and oftentimes we see the promiscuity that happens because she's trying to fill that void of needing that male's attention. And as you said, like, the two ends of the spectrum, being the golden child, they may find ways to be the best child that they can be to get their attention, but then being a black sheep or whatnot, they may find other ways to try to get their attention, negative ways to get attention. And for a girl child that hasn't had a father, she's seeking male attention. Let's be clear. She's seeking male attention. If she can't get male attention, she may even seek female attention. But she's gonna seek attention, and to what extreme she goes to get that attention, it depends on that particular child and what she's gone through. And the same thing with the male too. I won't talk about going in, getting involved in gangs, and but they're seeking attention, they're seeking validation, and they're seeking connection. They didn't get those things in childhood. So I just wanted to make mention of those. If you all want to make mention of things along those lines too, feel free to. The reason I do is because of the book that I did. I just written and it's out now called life mastery begins with filling the hole in the soul. It touches on these subject matters, the subject matters that we talked about today, and some that we hadn't touched on, but it goes deep into those voids to filling and healing the hole in the soul, and what we fill that hole up with. Oftentimes, like so, you talked about the crack addiction, but now that's a big opioid addiction that's going on now, and the crack addiction is still going on too. Don't sleep on, but it's addiction. Addiction is addiction is addiction. You can be addicted to anything. So I think that's an open can of worms. I say being addicted to whatever your persuasion is. But that addictive behavior is it's trying to fill that void. So and I think in this society we are always looking outside of ourselves, trying to fill that hole. Everybody has a hole in their soul. No one comes out of the womb into this earth and leave without a hole in the soul. So, but it's how it's dealt with along the way, along that journey that makes the difference. And if it's not dealt with in a positive way, then we see. Just look at how society has unfolded now in 2017. We see the craziness and people, man, say, from politics to religion to what have you, everything looks crazy and people sound crazy because, what you're seeing is the emptiness, the voids, the holes, and how they're trying to fill it. It looks crazy out here right now. But what you're simply seeing is people are trying to fill those voids in their life with outside things. They're looking on the outside of themselves for validation. They're looking for materialism and anything outside of themselves to fill that hole. That's what they're looking to do. In this society, we've been taught because this is a capitalistic society. That is all about money, power, and respect, and trying to have material things, and people do anything to get those things. But also you have to think about this society is based. It also has a social stratification system. That means you got poor, lower class, middle class, and the upper class. So when you got a class system in a capitalistic society, then what you're going to get is people at the bottom trying to be like the people that's above them, and the people that's above them trying to be like the ones above them. And the fallout from that is some is lost. Even though we got religion that's supposed to give people a conscience, a spirit, in a lot of ways, that's watered down and played out. Because the more accomplished it is, as we're seeing it being played out in this society, it's not what's being said is one thing, but what's being done is another. If you've seen that, as things unfold in this society, what we're really seeing is we have to get back to, like I said, the basics of what humanity, is really all about. And humanity is really all about helping others. Because the more you can help others, then the more you'll be able to help yourself. But if you're so hell bent on feeling better than someone else, or one group feeling better than another group, then we'll always be divided. And if this society is divided, then certainly we can't uplift one another. We can't be the geniuses that the creator that we've been created to be. And I say that because when you look around at everything that mankind has done, has created, look at the technology advances that we have. Look at the medical advances that we have. Look at you putting people on the moon and so forth. So we see the genius in man, but we're also seeing the craziness because we're arguing and fighting over petty stuff to where we can't get beyond ourselves. And, so we're destroying ourselves.
I like that. I think
people have to recognize that everyone has something to bring to the table. And what they bring may not be what you bring, but it still has value. As a society, we don't really emphasize that. We're taught that, whoever has the most toys wins. But you can't take that stuff with you, so you have to figure out what can I contribute to make not only my life richer, but the people around me richer. Because those are the things that you actually can get benefit from emotionally when you see how you can sow into somebody else's life, whether they can give back to you or not. Is very important, and that's one of the reasons I became a social worker. Was because I had that need, that hole in my soul, but giving back to others is a way to fill that hole.
Sure.
I think now it's important that we just recognize what society we live in. A lot of times they're comparing and contrasting themselves to other people, which makes the hole in your soul even bigger. I think that everybody, as you said, as you both alluded to, has their own personal value. They have their own purpose, something that they can contribute to society. And it's like people are ignoring that because they're so caught up in what everybody else is doing, when in reality, the beauty lies within.
So true, so true. So again, I want to just mention the book, Life Mastery Begins with Healing the Hole in the Soul. This book is on Amazon. It's on Create Space. It's available. I think anyone, before you go into 2018, you should get a copy of this book. And I say that to say, going into 2018, we should be looking at ourselves, looking at how we can better ourselves, how we can better our community, how we can better our families, how we can better our children, just making ourselves better people, because it starts with the individual. What you can do to make yourself better, and it starts with healing. Whatever hole, like I said, everybody got a hole in their soul. The first thing you have to do is acknowledge it and accept it, and then move forward from that standpoint. But if you never accept it or acknowledge it, then you're gonna keep bumping into issues and problems along the way. It's not to say that you're not gonna have problems and issues, because we all have issues. But the more we try to deal with those issues in a timely manner, and as we see them, then you have a better chance of doing better, being better, and just having a better life. Because life is really about happiness. And how you find happiness in life, it depends on how much of that void, of that hole in your soul, you can fill with positive affirmation, with positive ways to I guess, to just help uplift mankind. There are positive ways to do that. There are positive ways to not get so caught up in materialism. That you can't take any of that to the grave. It isn't going to make you any less, or better than anyone else. So people have to understand and have to understand what their self-worth, what it really is, what self-worth is really all about. No one on this earth is any better than or less than anyone else on this earth. Everybody put their pants on the same way. Everybody for the most part, come to this earth through the womb. So give thanks to women, because no one can get to this earth without going through a woman in the first place. So I think women should be held at the most high. And I say that because every male that's on this earth comes to a woman, which is their mother. And you should value women for just that, if for no other reason. This is Domestic Violence Month. But domestic violence in and of itself, if you're disrespecting a woman, you're disrespecting your mother in some form or fashion. So again, think about how you can better your own life, you can better yourself. And I want to close up on a positive note, just in saying that find the healer. Like I said, whether you need counseling, whether it be therapy or coaching, or just someone to talk to, that's even writing, again, having a journal to write your feelings down. I think a lot of men or boys have, a lot of times they're holding feelings in. And feelings sometimes turn into rage and everything else, except for, just the emotion. That's what it is. It's just an emotion. It needs to be dealt with. We say women let their emotions out all the time, and for the most part, that's true. But we're finding even that's not as true as it had been, because now women have taken on a lot of the male roles in society. They also taken on a lot of the, I won't say masculine energy, but just the way males have been taught to act, and it's not conducive to their growth. If anything, it's a hindrance. So I think women, there's nothing wrong with striving and moving forward, but don't fall into the same hole that the male has fell into, holding in a bunch of emotions and feelings. If you want to cry, cry. If you want to laugh, laugh. Get it. But the good thing is to get it out, not holding it in, because as you're holding it in, it festers, and it's only killing you inside. It's only killing you inside. It creates cancers and everything else. So the more you can get this stuff out, actually it can prolong your life. That's general, but you can't do that. So we're gonna wrap it up. I want to thank you two ladies for joining me today. Before we close, I want you to again, if you could tell us a little bit more about your organization, and then Sabrina, also you tell us a little bit more about the domestic violence advocacy work that you're doing. We want to close out.
So the name of my company is Therapeutic Family Solutions. You can visit our site at www.therapysolutionsrtp.com. I'm Michelle Chambers. I am the owner, and I'm also one of the therapists there. We also have other clinicians. We're all licensed. So we see those with substance use disorders, mental health issues, and our motto is we want you to function at your own personal best. So that means that your function is not going to look like someone else's functioning, but we're here to help you define what that is. Thank you.
All right, Sabrina.
So I just want to encourage everyone who's listening, if you know somebody who's experiencing domestic violence, to them. Don't judge them, just be willing to listen. The statistic says that it takes the average person in a domestic violence relation 7 times before they're actually ready to leave. So if they're staying in the relationship, don't give up on them, don't close the door. Just be a listening ear for them, because you never know what that time is that will trigger their being ready to go. And even if they decide to stay in a relationship, be supportive of them as much as possible, and let them know that you're available for them, whatever they might need emotionally.
All right, and I want to thank the viewing audience for joining us today. As you've done so far, continue to chime in. We'll be here again next Saturday. And I just want to thank you all for tuning in. And I want to thank you two ladies for being here, for sharing, and the insight that you all have and have brought to the table. I appreciate it. I know the audience appreciate it. So, Life Mastery TV, go to the website and also get the book. Y'all have a good one. Thank you.